Thanks for sticking around. Let me just set this up here. So usually what I do is I ask for show of hands in the audience, and I say, today, who loves surfing the web on their smartphone? Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3 people, and then I say, okay, now those of you who have an iPhone, put your hands down. And typically what happens, you've got 2 or 3 people in the audience that kind of enjoy the experience of surfing the mobile web. And so we said, well, why is that? And we started looking at this a couple of years ago before we got into the development of the product. And it's fairly simple. It's very complex and confusing to hand a mobile phone to somebody. There's no standards in the user interface. It's a very poor GUI. You hand somebody something that looks, for the most part, like a PC screen, but it's on a small screen. The data plans are very high, so when somebody buys a data plan and they find they're not using it, first thing they're going to do is they're going to cancel that data plan, and that's why we've seen a certain peak in ARPU in the industry, and the low adoption rates. In fact, surveys showed that less than 10% of smartphone users surf the web. So why is that? We've got 2 words. U8, which is typically what we're seeing on the most advanced system today out there with the iPhone, and we have a solution called iBrowz. So what iBrowz is, it's a managed service with a native client, but what we do is quite different. We took advantage of the memory slot in the phone. We started looking at this a few years ago, and we said, well, what are our chances if we go to the carriers or the handset people getting our application, which is a great application, installed on the phone? And even if you genuflect at the feet of the carriers, and no matter what Verizon said yesterday in the meeting, where they had a guy who's now in charge of open systems, it's probably going to be a few years before you can get something on there. So we looked at the phone and we said, you've got 1.5 billion phones provisioned with SD card slots. What if we could launch a platform on the slot and get into through that way? And then we said, well, instead of going out and having to click around to get to the mobile phone, what if we could set up a system, client-server system, that you could set up all of your widgets, set those widgets by the time of day like you would a TiVo. It goes out and grabs all of your content, caches it, and stores it on the device so it's instantly accessible. So that's what we built here over the last 2 years. We also have partnerships for very advanced type of widgets. You'll see some things launched over the next 6 months, things like streaming video, streaming audio services, email services, and we also have an open API for widget development. Because of time, I'm not going to go through the architecture, but there are a couple of interesting things here I'll point out. We also have a web companion site, which means a lot of the intelligence lives in the cloud. So if I'm in New York and I want to pull down new widgets that are New York-based, I'm not looking at a static user interface. I can drag and drop different things to my UI, sync it, and there I have a new interface that gives me widgets that are specific to that area. And then we can talk a little bit about the technology afterwards or at the break. Business model, it's advertising, it's pay for placement, but the difference between our ads and ads you see on typical mobile phones today is that they force the customer to go out to, say, a WAP site, use their mobile plan to look at an ad. We don't do that. Our ads are actually cached and stored on the device, and because we're taking log files from the device, we actually know what people are doing, and we can match ads to the actual application. From a monetization point of view, basically if somebody looks at 4 widgets a day, they see 18 screens, they're going to see roughly 13 ad views, and at a low CPM rate of $10, that could translate into about 13 cents in incremental ARPU a day. I'm going to show you some things like this, multimedia cached ads, microsites, and again, in terms of what we did, again, we cut out the path of having to go to the MNO or the handset. We can go directly to the consumer, pop in the card, launches the application directly for the customer. We also have a website called Get iBrowz. We're on the various sites to let people download that. We've got about 2,000 or 3,000 downloads today. We just launched this in March. So now what I want to do, I'm going to switch over to the Elmo, and I'm going to give you a little demonstration here. So let me zoom in on this. Now again, what we're seeing here is the typical interface that you would find on most mobile phones. What I'm going to bring up is our architecture. So a couple things you'll see here. First thing, if I get this and pop the card in, I can register my device. We pick up typical demographic information from the user so we know where they are. We have location for the consumer, so that helps us target advertising. Once I've done that,
I can go into my widgets, and I can surf through all the various widgets that I've already downloaded that are resident on the phone. I go to my news sites. I can pick out all the news sites that I want, subscribe to news, weather, sports. We have hundreds of widgets. The Open API will bring in thousands of different widgets that the user can use. And then as I go in, I can go in and set my update options. And here is where you have a little bit of this TiVo application where I can set it to go out when it's in my pocket every 30 minutes or relative to the application I'm using. And the result of this is that when I go into my content, and I'm just going to go into, say, news here, and I go into my CNN stories, it's instantaneous. You'll see that the information's already been brought down, formatted completely for the phone. There's no waiting. There's no flipping around to get to the actual website. We've done it all here. In terms of microsites that we have, if I go back to the beginning and I go to a site that Nike's sponsoring, again, you can see that the advertisement is already here. It's been downloaded, full motion video, cached and stored on the card. There's no waiting and going out to the site. So I'm going to switch back over to, and again, you can see us outside, and we can give you more information on what we've done here with the device. If I go back to my presentation, I'll just give you a quick summation. A couple things. We do have a partner in the flash memory business that this is going to be loaded onto about 10 million cards. It's going to retail in the first quarter. You'll be able to pull these cards right off the shelf. They commissioned a study in March. They went out to 9 countries with 3,000 respondents. The interest level was significant to the point where 73% of the people said they would pay a $10 premium for iBrowz